to hear God and to understand truth, you have to accept that there's ambiguity, is that the word? And there's a paradox to truth in the way that I think when you have the posture where you allow yourself to be a little bit lost and just say like I actually don't really know, um there's a humility and a humbleness which actually makes you open to hear the real truth. And I think that gives God space to talk and to show you because you've made room to, you're not saying these are all the hills that I'm going to die on and this is the exact way that it is, because I think truth is like a journey, and it's complex in the way that, you know, Holy Spirit, help me with this. A lot of what, when I, just for example, like listening to, sermons and people, a lot of what people say isn't like it's true. Like there's a lot of truth in what people say, but it's only part of the story. And so that's what I think I've had to come to terms with and just be okay with. Like accept that I'm never going to know the full truth while I'm here on earth. I am only going to know the truth in part, and it's an ongoing journey. And you always have to be kind of willing to, I feel like God will speak to you truth and give you understanding for what is beneficial for you in the season that you're in. But then next season, because you've kind of like gotten a bit wiser, you might have a bit more capacity. He might then actually just like be like, okay, we're kind of starting again. Like that was only the tip of the iceberg, and you kind of need to disregard what has been to be open again. And so it's this like ongoing journey of just like lowering yourself. Even doing the videos, I you can sometimes feel like a bit cringe or a bit like, oh, I was wrong there, or should I delete that? But I think that being okay with that we only know the truth in part, is, I think, one of the ways that we can open our heart up to God truly, because he's going to always want to like give us more revelation, and it's going to grow as we go along. But when you have a really like narrow mindset on something, it just limits you to how he might want to talk about that thing again to you and give you a better understanding. And I'm not saying like truth isn't true, but I always think that there is more to it, and that's the journey that we're on, and that's why we have to have humility, because like, and I think that's why we fight, is because a lot of the time it's not wrong what this person's saying or what this person's saying, even though they look to be on opposite sides. It's like both true sometimes, and you have to be able to carry the reality of there's truth to both of it, but it's not the whole picture. And I think what Jesus did, sorry, when he walked on earth, is he was fully integrated. So he was weak and strong, he was dark and light. And what we do as humans by nature is we sort of collapse into one or the other. Whether we're naturally someone that's very stern, so we come at things like you have to be this way about it, whereas somebody who has like a really tender, compassionate, sensitive heart might come at it a different way. And it's like, they're not necessarily both wrong, but it's not the full picture. There's more to it. Don't die on that hill, because you will limit your growth. So I think that's an important point that I feel like the Lord has been showing me. And as I've gone on this walk, I'm like, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to show us like, these are your like strengths, or these are the things that you lean into more. And he's like, I want to bring these things up here, up more, and I want you to understand that there's a paradox to everything, and there's always an opposite side of truth to what you're saying, and the idea is not to collapse into one or the other. And we see this with, like, in politics, it's such an obvious example. It's like we've got the right wing and the left wing, but they're just two wings from the same bird. Like, the bird needs both its wings to fly, and it's same with us. We need to have both ends of the paradox. We need to have light and darkness, strength and weakness, you know, vulnerability and, stoicness. I like all of it encompasses God, and we have to have all of it. And that's the idea, I think, that Jesus left the pattern for us. He was fully integrated, where he was able to carry both those things like perfectly. I think that is the goal. And that's how you love properly. And that's when you realize, like, I'm not heavily on one side or the other. I'm like, they both have truth in them. They both have goodness in them. Um, sometimes they just collapse into one side too much or the other. And that's what creates division. And if we realize that we're all supposed to carry a healthy amount of both sides, we wouldn't be so divided, I don't think. Yeah, I think God's so interesting. And I think it's just a really humbling experience to be walking with him. Just like us, like, he's been talking about how he's like, I want to keep your heart tender, but I'm going to give you a tough outer shell so I can keep your heart tender. Like, see how, like, that's a paradox in itself. It's like, I'm not all soft or I'm not all hard. It's like, you know, hard outer layer. I've got walnuts sitting over here, and the shell of a walnut, it's like, it's quite strong, right? Just to protect this one little nut. And the actual walnut itself, it's quite a soft nut, especially when it's quite a soft nut. I'm gonna grab it so you can see. So I'm just looking at these and I'm like, this is so, like, what I'm talking about right now. So they're really hard, but inside that, you crack that open and there's like a really, like a pretty soft nut inside there. And this is what we are. This is what God's trying to produce in us. He's like, you're a bit of both, right? And I want to have it balanced for the right reasons. And so this is what he does. He wants to keep our heart tender so we can be loving. But he's also like, I got to protect you from all, craziness out there. So I'm going to give you a hard outer layer so your heart can stay tender. And that's the idea. Our hearts get hardened as we go through life, and he wants to soften them. He wants to soften them, but it can feel scary having a soft heart, and you think, I'm gonna get taken for a ride again, or things are gonna happen. It's like, no. He's like, he gives you a tough shell, and like, look, this is simply like a nut in nature. You think he thinks this much about this? Like, he wants to protect this little nut. This is so symbolic, guys. He's like, I will create this hard shell for one nut to protect one nut. Think about, like, what he is willing to do in us, like, give us to protect us, to help us on this journey. Like, this and so much more. Sorry, this has been a real random ramble. I'll catch you guys on the next one. I hope this has encouraged you with something. Love and blessings. Bye.